Shall we start?
We shall. All right.
This is fun.
On today's episode, we sit with Blair Nadeau of Blair Nadeau Bridal Adornments. Now, Blair has a background in fashion and specializes in creating bridal veils and accessories. Her products are absolutely stunning. They're available worldwide, and if you haven't checked them out yet, make sure you hop over and check out some of the stuff on her page because it's really, really beautiful work. She's been featured in a number of publications as well as on some television shows that you might be familiar with. It's an amazing episode, and this is a whole world we have not dove into yet. So enjoy the show, guys. This is fun. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, Blair Nadeau.
Yes, Corinne McDonald.
So, Blair Nadeau Bridal Adornments.
Yes.
Lovely to have you, my dear.
It's lovely to be here. Thank you.
We always see each other, but it's on creative shoots.
It is.
Or,
it is. Not enough.
Yeah, not on a wedding day.
No,
but
I'm behind the scenes.
You're behind the scenes months prior. Which
months.
We will,
months, days, weeks.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, it's a lot of last minute
and
rides
even up
too.
to hours, likely.
Yes, actually, I have done a few up to the hours before,
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm excited to get into these
Okay.
teaser stories. So for everyone who's watching and listening, since we are a video and audio podcast, why don't you kind of give a bit of a summary about who you are and what you do?
Well, I am Blair Nadeau, as Corinne has lovely introduced me, and I am a bridal accessory designer. So I actually started years ago in the fashion industry, and it kind of went into doing more accessories like headbands and hats, and I got really into the millinery world, and then from there I kind of branched out into bridal, something that I funnily enough said I would never do.
Really?
Yes.
It's funny how it calls you in. What I'm finding
really does.
is sometimes some of the guests that have come in here, they've been like, weddings have really found me.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
And it's probably sounds like it's similar with you.
It was, and it's funny, when I was in school, because I studied fashion, and I saw all my friends that were making bridal gowns, and they were doing the bridal collections, because in fourth year we do a fourth year collection. And I was a little punk rocker at the time. I was a bit of a rockabilly. I had like the pompadour and the pink hair, and everything I wore had cherries and stars and
Really?
Sailor Jerry. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like such a rockabetty. And coincidentally, that was the name of my collection, was Rockabetty. And I saw all my friends doing bridal, and I was like, ooh, bridal. No, never. I'll never work with satins. I'll never work with silks. I'll never work with tulle, and it's too pretty. And my collection ended up being all black, and it was like a rocker collection. I had because I'm an artist as well, so I hand painted tattoo sleeves on the garments, and I did like big giant skulls with bows on them. So it was cute and feminine, but it was still like kind of a little edgy.
Right.
And so yeah, I had no interest in the bridal world at all.
Until,
and it's funny, when I was getting into the millinery world, I was like, I'm gonna only be fashion millinery, so I was gonna make hats, and I made hats with
like
spikes
runway
on
fashion
them.
and
More just fashion.
Just
so
fashion.
like cocktail hats and things that people could wear to a night out. And it was it was in the infancy of fascinators in North America, because when I started out, I was introduced to them when I was in England, and when I came back, I said to people, I'm making fascinators, and I got like that blank stare of, what the heck is that? And so I kind of started educating people on what a fascinator was, and did a lot of research on it. And it was about a year before the royal wedding, and then the royal wedding happened, and that was when I kind of jumped into bridal. So I'd already been doing it for about a year, and I was doing like fascinators for people to wear out to a night out. I wore a lot of them out, and it was kind of when that feather headband trend was kind of big too, about 10 years ago. And then I had a friend who I made a feather headband for, and she was like, hey, I'm getting married. Can you do one in ivory? And I was like, ugh, ivory. And I was like,
Against my religion.
fine. Yeah, pretty much. And I was like, yeah, fine. I can probably do one in ivory. And then she's like, can I get a birdcage veil too? And I'm like, oh, what? And I had only really known of birdcage veils on my head, like on my hat. So like I would do the little hats with the little angle birdcage. And I was like, okay, I guess I could do a birdcage veil on its own. Took me about 4 hours to figure out the first one, and it was, in my opinion, it was a mess. She thought it was fantastic, so bless her. And so she was really happy. It looked gorgeous on her. Everything came together. And then from there, a few of her friends saw that and was like, hey, can I get one too? And this was kind of when bird cages were at their their height of popularity, and this was around like maybe 2009, 2010. And that was kind of what I became known for then, was birdcage veils. Birdcage veils and feather fascinators. So that's what everybody was coming to me for. And then I was like, wait a second, I think something's happening here. Like, I think all of a sudden I'm a bridal designer. And then I decided, okay, let's do it. Let's
Stop the
fight.
Engage it.
Just like it's funny, total opposite. I've been fighting dusty pink in the interior design world. I've been fighting it because I grew up, my whole house was dusty pink. My mom loved dusty pink in the 90s.
Dusty rose too.
Oh yeah, everywhere. Every room, dusty pink. And I said to my mother this morning, I bought some dusty pink shams. And she was so proud. It was like a proud moment. So I finally stopped fighting the dusty pink. I've embraced it. I'm accepting it.
Good.
So just like I embraced and accepted that I was a bridal designer.
And there we go.
And there we go.
And so this was starting what year?
2009 I established. So I started designing in about 2008. I really wanted to figure out what I was doing and understand what I was doing. I didn't want to just say, hey guys, I'm here. Look at what I can do. I really wanted to learn about millinery and practice and play. So like every night, like I worked a day job, and every night I'd come home and I'd sit in this little studio in my sweet little basement apartment, and I would just make hats and make hats and make hats and make hats. And then finally I thought, okay, I think I'm ready to introduce them to the world. Right. And that's when so in 2009, April 21st, 2009 is the day that my original business was called Feathered by Blair Nadeau.
Feathered?
Feathered.
Oh.
So it was, because it was all, at that time, it was just feather headpieces and feather cocktail hats. So that was kind of where I started, and then it kind of just snowball as it does.
Were you making hats for something specific when you were sitting in the basement, or were you
practicing? Just for me. Yeah, just for me. Like I was learning different techniques. I started by doing sewn hats. Eventually I later learned how to do blocking, which is more of a traditional method of millinery, and something I'm completely self-taught. There are a lot of, when I was in school, I had an opportunity to do millinery, and I really love surface design and textiles, which is obvious with a lot of what I do now. So I was like, nah, I'm not going to do the millinery class. I'm going to do the textiles class. In hindsight, I wish I had taken that class, but I'm also a big self-learner. I really love making my own mistakes, and I really love teaching myself something new and having those eureka moments when you're like, oh my God, I figured it out. Right. So I prefer, like, I love school. I love being in the classroom. Like, school was one of the best times of my life, but at the same time, I really love teaching myself and constantly learning and trying new things. So,
did you have a mentor at all?
I've had many mentors, not as much in the millinery world. There has been a couple that have taken me kind of under their wing when I started out, and were really great to me and kind of introduced me to people. And because there's very few of us in the city, but in the business world, I've had two amazing mentors that have really honed in on what it's like to be an entrepreneur, and I've been very blessed to have them in my corner.
So it is a small little group of you.
It is.
In the city.
It is.
So that's why I think it's nice, because I see you on shoots frequently, because when you're doing veil and accessories, and you're doing some of the shoulder accessories as well. So how did it spin off from when you were doing the hats, and then how did you kind of get into the jewelry?
So it's a natural progression, and it's something that, one piece of business advice that I was always given was be really great at one thing and then branch out to something else. Like, really figure something out, be really expert at it, just really focus in on that, and then, then you can try other things. And that's something that I really kept in mind. Like, for the first 2 years, I really only focused on feathers, and I was like, that's it, I'm going to just work on feathers. And then I kind of got into the, like, obviously the hats and the feathers at the same time. Then I started getting into the birdcage veils, and I said to myself, I'm never going to make a full-length veil. Okay. But that's what I originally said. Like, I was just going to stick to because I really wanted to become an expert at a few things. And then, over the years, I realized trends were changing, and being that I'm in the fashion industry, and being that that's my background, I was constantly seeing the trends evolve and trends change. And I was like, okay, if I want this to be a longevity business, if I want this to be something that I'm going to succeed at full time, I'm going to have to keep up with the trends. So I don't want to be like, quote unquote, a trendsetter, because I like to, or trend follower. I like to be more of a trendsetter. But at the same time, maintain my aesthetic, because I do have a very specific aesthetic that I like to maintain. And by, seeing where the trends were shifting and where they were evolving, I was seeing kind of a downturn in birdcage veil. So I was like, okay, what's next? So from there, I realized, okay, it's more headpieces, it's more crowns. So then I started, getting involved in that. And I was like, oh, this is actually a different skill than what I was doing before. So I, really took some time to learn that skill. And then from there, I saw, okay, dresses are going really deep and low in the back. So where does that leave me? Okay, maybe I need to go into back necklaces. And so I kind of, joined this back necklace trend. And then I started seeing, actually before that, I started seeing dresses become more sweetheart. And I'm just like, oh, that's interesting. Regular necklaces don't really work for that because you need to fill a lot more space. So let's evolve this necklace into a shoulder necklace. So that's kind of how the shoulder jewelry came about. And it's just seeing, really listening to my customers. A lot of my customers will come to me with a lot of custom requests. And that's when I will say, oh, okay, maybe there's something there. So a lot of my designs actually evolve from what my customers are asking for. Right. And when I started doing the back jewelry, people are like, oh, do you have matching earrings to go? And I was like, I don't really make earrings, but let's figure it out. So, it's been an evolution of, starting with one element and then just kind of evolving it into something else and just seeing where the trends are going. So I do have to follow a lot of what the designers are showing. I get a lot of my inspiration actually from interior design. Okay. So I find that because my background's in fashion, I see what's happening on the runway, and then about a year later, it trickles down into what's happening in stores. And then you start to see the interior design world kind of taking elements from what's happening in fashion, and then bridal takes the elements. So it's about a 3-year turn from what's happening on the fashion runways to then what happens into the bridal runways.
And it's scaled down a bit from... It is. It kind of keeps scaling down.
Yeah, you have to keep trickling it down. Yeah, it keeps trickling down. But things like the marbles and the agates and the different stoneworks, you're seeing that in interior design. Mm-hmm. I'm bringing that into bridal, right? So I'm starting to see requests from brides saying, oh, can you do something in quartz? And I was like, ooh, that's interesting. So, that's why my whole quartz collection kind of came about. So it's they start seeing things in interior and they start seeing things in the higher fashion, and they're like, how can I interpret that in bridal? So that's kind of how that kind of comes together.
I see. Yeah. Interesting.
It is.
That is. So if I'm a bride and I pick a dress and then I'm like, you know what, this needs something. Do I come to you with the dress and say, what can we do? So
because I do sell a lot online, my brides will send me photos of their dresses. Okay. Or if they do come to see me locally in person, then some of them do bring their dress. A lot of the times we're meeting at a point where they don't have their dresses yet. So we work a lot from photographs. If we need measurements, we wait until the dress actually physically comes in, and then we'll get the measurements from that. But the vast majority of the time, we're just working on photographs. Yeah. And we kind of look at the dress and think, what will work well with this? What will take away from it? What will complement it? If there's lace on the dress, let's complement it with some sort of lace or an intricate headpiece. If it's a really minimal dress, let's do something really statement-y. Let's have the headpiece or the shoulder piece or the back jewelry be the statement.
Do you find that people give you a lot of creative freedom? They're just kind of what do you think can happen?
Yeah. I like to think that I know what I'm doing. So it's I do have the brides that have a very specific point of view, that they know what they want. They've seen something. That's kind of it. But then there are the ones that come and say, I don't know what's going to work. So we do have a lot of brainstorming sessions, whether it be through emails or we do some FaceTime sometimes as well. Just kind of really, I have to figure out who the person is and what will work for them. I could see a dress and say, yeah, this could really work. But then if I meet the person and I'm like, it doesn't suit their personality. I don't want to put somebody who's a little bit shyer into a big, giant, grand headpiece where they're going to be the center. They're already the center of attention as the bride. And I know a lot of brides tell me that they aren't comfortable being that center of attention for the day. So why dress them up in something that's going to make them even more of a center of attention? So I have to take their personalities into effect as well when I'm working with them.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because like you said, if you're going to put a big crown on someone who's a little bit more shy, right? Then
it's not going to work. It's not, and they're not going to feel comfortable, and they're going to feel like everybody's staring at them. But then I do have the ones that come in and say, "Oh, I love it." But are people going to think I'm being, presumptuous or pompous? Because I'm like, it's your wedding day. If you love the crown, wear the crown.
Yeah.
I'm always about wear the crown.
Yeah, it's your day to choose.
It's your day. When else are you going to get to wear a crown? Yeah. When else are you going to get to wear a veil? Yeah. So, yeah, I know there are girls that are like, oh, what are other people going to think? Who cares? It's your day. If you feel good in it, do it, right? If it makes you feel amazing, then wear it. But if it makes you feel self-conscious, please do not wear it.
Right.
Because then you're going to feel self-conscious all day.
Exactly.
And we don't want that.
Otherwise, you feel confident.
Exactly.
Let it go.
A crown
Go, girl.
can make anybody confident. Like, it's a crown.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Are feathers still in?
They died out.
Okay.
I would say about 4 years ago.
Okay.
But I'm seeing a resurrection in them. I'm seeing some designers starting to add them back in, because there was a really big deco period.
Yes.
There was a big roaring 20s
Yes, there
period.
was.
There was a very big deco period where everybody wanted the birdcage. Everybody wanted more of that form-fitting satin dress, the scalloping and all that kind of detail. So that had its day. It's kind of died out, but I'm seeing it come back, but in a different way.
Okay.
So I'm seeing it come back a lot more minimal. There's a big trend for minimalism right now. So I'm seeing it come in a little bit more minimal, but especially with birdcage veils, they're coming back, but they're going to be a lot more modern, like similar to what we did for the recent wedlock shoot. So that's kind of more where I'm seeing the birdcage go. Less of the asymmetrical over the face, more symmetrical, more face forming, fitted, just in a different way. So it's coming back, but it's coming back in a different way.
What do you think is something that you'd like to see happen
With
in a trend set? Like, so there's feathers. Like, is there anything that you wish kind of might hit the market that you could?
What would I wish would hit the market?
Like back to rocker?
I
And
would
edgy
love
things?
to do some edgy stuff. I do get some edgy brides from time to time.
What's the edgiest piece you've done?
The edgiest piece I've done, I had a bride last summer. She was fabulous, Jen. She got married in Prague. She wore a black Vera Wang, and we did a black silk tulle blusher veil with rose gold spiders on it.
Oh, wow.
Like, come on. I was in my glory. I had 2 brides last year that were rockers. One that wanted skulls on her headpiece. I was just like, yes. And then I had Jen, who had the rose gold spiders. So she actually got her wedding featured in Rock and Roll Bride, which was pretty awesome.
Oh, wow.
Because I love that magazine.
I was going to say, that sounds pretty epic.
It's pretty epic.
Yeah.
And she had like this photos in like this old Gothic church and in the graveyard, and she has a Sphinx cat, and I'm living vicariously through her.
Wow.
So yeah, I definitely would love to see a little bit of edgy come back. And I think that's kind of where I'm taking my next collection. Not too edgy because I still have to be commercial enough, but I'm just kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, I think, with this next collection. So I'm a little excited to start working on that.
So if you have the ability, you can kind of put together some pieces, test them out, and see if they don't take, then you can move it in a different way.
Exactly.
Or if people love them, then you know that it's
exactly.
But it's kind of trial and error.
It's trial and error,
Yeah.
and sometimes I have to do things as we like to call them vanity projects. So it's like just something for our own vanity. Like there are pieces in my collection that I know people will probably never buy or never wear, but they're great for editorial. And it's just something that, comes to me in a dream at night, or I'm just sitting there sketching and I'm like, ooh, that would be cool. Yeah. Or I see something in a fashion magazine and I'm just like, how can I interpret this to bridal? And those are just kind of our little vanity projects.
Yeah.
But
you have to have
but you know
those.
what? People buy them.
Yeah.
It's like, because I feel like there's a buyer for everything.
Yep.
And I'll have some pieces that I think will never sell, and then they'll become runaway hits. So it's just kind of like you really don't know. So you just kind of have to put it out there, and whether it's going to be something for editorial or if it's going to be something that someone's actually going to wear on their wedding day, and you never know.
Circling back to magazines, so give us kind of some of the magazines you've been published in. And what moment were you like, oh, this is amazing? Like the first time you got published, what was that like?
So I had just started out. It was like circa 1999. Oh God, circa 2009. And I was in London visiting my family. That's where my family's from. And I was in Shoppers and I saw this magazine kind of beckoning me. It was Wedlocks. And I was like, what is this? And it kind of was just in its infancy. I think they had been around for a few years. And I picked it up off the shelf. It was kind of like, see like beacon of light. So I picked it up and I'm like, what is this? And I'm looking through it and I'm like, this is gorgeous. I love this. And I said to myself on that day, in a year, I will be in this magazine. And that was my goal.
Really?
And I had just kind of started out. It was just the summer. I was just like, I don't know how, don't know why, but I'm going to be in this magazine. And a year to the day, I came out in the August issue. So it was pretty amazing.
Cool.
I went home, I found out some information about Wedlocks, and I sent Angela an email. I said, hi, I'm Blair. You don't know me. I don't really know you, but let's be friends kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just kind of let her know who I was. And, you know, she said, great, thanks for sharing. And a few months later, they were doing an editorial. So she pulled a few pieces and I had a beautiful feature. My fascinator was on a Vera Wang dress. And it was one of those moments where it was just like, oh my God, like, wow. You know, when you set a goal for yourself and it actually, like a year later, it came to fruition, was a pretty exciting moment.
For sure.
So that was probably, I don't think that was the first magazine I was in. I believe I was in the Wedding Ring before that, and I think Wedding Bells. But Wedlux was kind of, I mean, they're all great magazines, but it was like Wedlux was just kind of an aspiration for me. And I've been pretty much in almost every issue since. Mm-hmm. They've been really amazing. I've been part of the magazine as a glitterati for a time, and I feel like they really support local talent, and which is something that I really love about them. And I think in general, the Canadian magazine industry really supports local talent. Like, I've been blessed to be in pretty much every Canadian bridal magazine that there has been. Mm-hmm. I've also been featured in British Vogue a couple times, which was kind of cool. It's one of those pinch me moments. Harper's Bazaar. What else? Hello Magazine.
So how does that work? If you have a bride that's in somewhere in the UK, mm-hmm. and then they submit to the magazine, mm-hmm. is that kind of how that works?
Well, British Vogue was more, they contacted me and asked me to be in the magazine.
Oh, love it.
Which was kind of, when I got the email, I remember I was sitting at my day job and this email came from Condé Nast came through and I was like, what? You know, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, who's joking with me, or this is spam. So I started looking into it, and I went on LinkedIn and I looked up the name of the person who was emailing me. I'm like, okay, yeah, she exists. She really is one of the editors for British Vogue. And then we started talking, and she asked me to be part of the magazine, and it was kind of like, what? Like, wow. I'm going to be in British Vogue. So I had a couple opportunities with them, Brides UK as well. But a lot of them have been more, less the brides being featured, more style shoots. So a lot of the shoots I've been picked up and have been picked up in magazines around the world. But then I don't get to, unfortunately, know a lot when my brides get picked up in magazines. Some mm-hmm. of them will let me know. Sometimes the magazines will let me know. But I think I've been in, I think about 60 different publications.
Oh,
so between fashion and bridal, which is... It's humbling.
Yeah.
It really is.
Wow.
Like, when I actually go back and look and see the stacks of magazines, because I buy them all. I mean,
yeah,
I want to have them all. There's
you have a little library.
I have my little library. It's kind of, it still doesn't feel real.
Yeah.
You know, 10 years later, it still doesn't feel real. It never gets old. It never gets old opening up a magazine and seeing my name in print. I know print is kind of not where it used to be, but it's still, to me, to hold a physical magazine. I mean, blogs are great. I love being featured on blogs, but there's just something really special to open up a crispy, glossy magazine and, you know, see my name in there. It's pretty amazing.
Cool. Well, congrats. I mean,
Thanks.
After all those hours that you're putting into such work, it's well deserved.
Thank you.
So what's an average amount of, is there an average amount of time that you can say that you spend on a certain piece, or it completely varies on
it really varies.
It really would,
you know, like we were talking about earlier today, the veil that took 50 hours. So I had a veil that recently took 50 hours to make. And then I can have a pair of earrings that'll take maybe 15, 20 minutes. So, you know, really, and then I have earrings that take a few hours. And, you know, it all really depends on the complexity of the piece, how much handwork is involved, mm-hmm. the type of materials. When we're getting into custom is when the hours really, you know, do add up. Some crowns can take up to, I worked on a crown the other day, it took about 6 or 7 hours. Wow. So, you know, it depends on the complexity of the piece.
And do you get massages on your hands?
I do, not enough. I have a really great massage therapist. I have to see him soon after this 50-hour veil. But I try and do massages about every 3 to 4 months, a little bit more frequently during the busy season, because mm-hmm. my hands, I do have carpal tunnel, I have tendonitis, I've got a little bit of tennis elbow, I've got everything happening to this right hand. Right. One day I'm gonna be like, meh. But I have to, as soon as I start to feel a burn, I put the tools down and I walk away. So I have to really be cognizant of that. I do heat them a few nights a week, and I do I wear a hand brace at bed. It's really lovely.
It's hand self-care.
It is. It has to be, because these are my tools. You know, I do have physical tools I work with, but these really are my tools. So I have to, you know, keep them as cherished as possible. I use them as excuses to not do housework or lift anything heavy because they're my hands, they're my tools. So I get out of a lot of things, but yeah, I definitely have to protect them.
Okay, so let's switch gears a little bit and talk about some advice to some brides.
Okay.
What's kind of a key piece of advice for someone who's looking for accessories, or should it be a specific accessory?
Key piece, get your dress first. Start with the dress. I do have brides that come to me, and I'm very honored when this happens, that they say that they've fallen in love with a piece of mine and they can't stop looking at it or thinking about it, but they haven't gotten their dress yet. And it's like, please don't base your accessories or your dress around your accessories, because the dress is the most important piece that you're going to be wearing of the day. And I have had brides that have fought me on it, and they've gone with the accessory first and then they planned their dress around it. To me, I feel like that is, I can work around a dress. Trying to find the perfect dress to work around an accessory is a lot harder. So pick your dress first, please, ladies. Yeah. And then we will discuss the accessories.
When it comes to hair accessories, should they already know whether they want to have it up or down, depending?
Yes.
Yes.
Some pieces, like crowns, we can work around it updo or your hair down. Hair vines generally work better with your hair up. Hairpins, hair combs, better with hair up. So, but if you're wanting to do like a back necklace or a shoulder piece, hair's got to go up, because that's going to be your focus. So you want to make sure your hair's up for that. But I do have brides that'll come and they're not 100% sure. So we'll kind of, at that point, we'll discuss some options, and then once they have their hair trial, then we can kind of modify things if we need to, whether we change it to a comb versus a bobby pin loop, or we change it to a headband versus, you know, something that's a little bit more softer. So
gotcha.
Yeah, hair is definitely a necessity.
Yeah, because sometimes I feel like some people don't, well, obviously they do hair trials, but should they have their hairpiece for a hair trial?
I recommend it.
Yeah,
I do. One, it gives the stylist an idea of what's going in the hair for the day of, so then they can kind of plan the headpiece around it. Sometimes my brides, especially since I ship to all over the world, either they've had their hair trial first, and then I'll look at their pictures of their hair trial and I'll say, okay, this we can easily fit in, this the stylist can easily work with, or they'll, if the piece is custom and it's not going to be ready in time for their hair trial, sometimes dates just don't mix. They'll take a picture of what they're getting and show the stylist, so the stylist can say, okay, this is kind of an idea of what's happening, so they can kind of work a hairstylist around that, because stylists work with hair pieces all the time. So if they see something that's a comb or a pin or a vine, they'll have an idea of how to kind of fit it into the style. So I like brides to have it for the trial in a perfect world, but unfortunately it doesn't happen all the time, but we have ways to work around it.
So talk to me about the shipping, because you mentioned it briefly.
Yes.
So how exactly, first of all, how are brides finding you worldwide?
So I'm on Etsy. Etsy's kind of my bread and butter. I do about 600 to 650 orders a year on Etsy.
Wow.
This year I'm on track to do about 700. It's crazy. And
more
then
hand massages, please.
Yes. And I also have my own website as well, which is powered by Shopify. If anybody wants to get a website, Shopify is, I'm a big advocate for them. It's amazing. Okay. So those are kind of how people are finding me. Etsy is a great built-in marketplace. They have great SEO, or you have to have your own SEO, but they do have the built-in customer base. I think they have somewhere like 65 million customers that are on Etsy a year. It's a big marketplace. Shopify, having your own website, it's a little tougher. It's a little bit more about self-promotion. Having great SEO, I mean, we're constantly learning. Google's constantly changing, so having to keep up with that is fun. Having new content all the time is fun, but I find my biggest customer base on Etsy is America, Australia, and Great Britain. A little bit of Germany as well, since Etsy just acquired Dewando, which was the German version of a handmade marketplace. So I'm getting a lot more German customers through Etsy. But my Shopify, I'm finding I get really interesting customers. I get New Zealand, I get China, Malaysia, Singapore, Dubai, some like really crazy places that I never in my life thought I would have been shipping orders to. So it's so I find with Etsy, because it's not as world known yet, it's still in its infancy for the rest of the world, but Google isn't. So other countries are finding me through Google and finding my website.
Okay.
And through blogs, like I've had customers that come to me saying, oh, I saw your piece on a blog that was featured in New Zealand. I'm like, oh, I'm on a blog in New Zealand. That's cool. Wow. So, you know, the world is so small nowadays. And I always like to ask people where they see me or find out about me. And Pinterest is also a really big thing for me. I have a lot of my work up on Pinterest, and I find Pinterest is a really great link back to my website.
Did you do your own SEO, or did you have somebody?
No, I do all my own.
You did it all.
I did all my own
so
SEO,
you did all of your own
and
research.
Like I said, I'm a self-learner, and I like to learn everything myself, which is why I did my taxes for so many years. I just like to have control, which is a really bad thing, because I know I need to like learn to let go. But for me, I like to learn everything and know everything, because then if I do want to teach somebody, then I have those skills that I've already honed in on. But yeah, I had to learn Etsy, it's a mouthful, Etsy SEO, and I'm still learning it. They change their algorithms every 6 months. They're constantly changing how they do things. Nothing stays stagnant there. It's like you have to constantly keep up with what they're doing in the background as well. So yeah, it's
wow. Good for you. SEO is
I'm still not there with my website. It's getting better. I'm seeing the engagement. I'm seeing the traction coming through. But it takes time. It takes time, and it takes trial and error, and just learning and just figuring it all out yourself, and having the content. You have to have the content constantly changing, constantly renewing, because those rub crawlers are going through. And like, I know as soon as I get a spike, it's like, ooh, the rub crawlers came by and they put me up higher. So it's a different world. It definitely is a different world.
I feel like it's one of those things in business in general that you should know a little bit of every avenue, because if you did want to bring someone on,
absolutely,
you can teach them the basics, but maybe they know more about SEO because it's their specialization. But at least you know if they were to leave you.
Well, and that's it,
like,
right?
Well, at least I can pick this up.
And that's exactly it. And that's kind of why I've become a little bit of a control freak and want to have my hand in every part of the business. But that's why it was really hard for me to hire somebody this year to do my taxes, but I'm so glad I did.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I can't even believe.
What a weight off of my shoulders. I mean, it's like my poor fiance, he would be because I'm a business, I can file in June. So it's like June 14th. He's like putting all the receipts for like all of the stores that I've been shopping in, because I work with so many materials. So it's like the receipts from like hundreds of receipts a month. So
What's your accounting software?
I'm on QuickBooks. I love it.
On FreshBooks.
Are you? I found for me with QuickBooks, because I don't do a lot. I looked into FreshBooks. I don't do a lot of in-person invoicing, because I work on Shopify and Etsy. So we're able to just put in kind of like a big, like I didn't really need it for the invoicing system. So I find with QuickBooks, I really loved how it integrated with literally everything. It integrated with Etsy, it integrated with Shopify, it integrated with PayPal, it integrated with my banks and my credit card. So it's like I just press a button and it's all there, and it's
kind of a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah, I really love it. And it took me 9 years of my fiance convincing me to finally get it, because his parents own a business and his mom kept saying, get QuickBooks, and I'm like, no, I'm good. Excel for life.
Spreadsheets.
Hence why I'm still on a BlackBerry. I don't like change.
Yeah.
But that was one of the biggest changes that I made this year, and it was one of the best changes I made.
Okay, let's change pace a little bit. So talk to me about, and the audience, obviously, everyone's listening.
Everybody listening.
What you're doing in the world of television.
Television's fun.
So you are featured on some TV shows that you're working with regularly. How did you get those gigs?
So my first gig was Rain, which if you guys aren't familiar, it was a show. It was filmed here in Toronto. It was on the CW network. I love the CW network. Gossip Girl, 90210. I still watch the CW, the 100. Yeah. So it was featured on the CW, and it was based on Mary Queen of Scots. So it was kind of a loose adaptation of the life of Mary Queen of Scots and Queen Elizabeth. But it was really focused on the fashion. And so I remember I was sitting at my day job. This is where I would get a lot of great emails during my day job. And I got this email through my website from a stylist who said she was working on a TV show. And I was like, yeah, right. So of course I take to Google, and I Google, she said it was about Mary Queen of Scots. And I'm like, okay. And she said they're filming it in Toronto. They filmed the pilot in Scotland, and they were going to be coming to Toronto, and she was looking for accessories. And I had just started doing crowns at the time. Like, that was my first season doing crowns. And so I was like, all right, let's look into this. So I look into it, and I'm like, okay, this is legit. This is actually a TV show. It's going to be filmed in Toronto at CineSpace. I'm like, okay. So I emailed her back and I was like, yeah, sure, I'm interested. And so she came over to my loft and came into my studio, and like the breeze just said, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that, I'll take that. I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And so she's like, can I borrow them for the season? I'm like, you can take whatever you want. So like, just take it all. So she borrowed about 5 or 6, maybe 8 headpieces. I can't quite remember. And she said, I can't promise anything. I'm going to bring these back to the stylist, because she actually wasn't the stylist on the show. She was a jewelry designer from New York, and she was helping out her friend who was the stylist, the costume designer, sorry, for the show. And so she's like, I can't promise anything, but who knows? So I'm like, all right. So I didn't want to tell anybody, because I was like, I have this superstition that if you tell people, things aren't going to happen. Mm-hmm. So I always, anything that's big, I only tell my family, and that's it. And then I swear them to secrecy. So then the first episode of the show came out. I watched it and I was like, oh, okay, this is cool. And it was filmed, like she said, it was filmed in Scotland. And then I was like, okay, well, let me watch the next episode. So the second episode came out. Halfway through the episode, one of the main actresses came out in my crown. And it was like, what? Like, I just lost it. I started crying. My fiance comes down. He's got a camera and he's like videotaping it, and lost my mind. Like, it was the coolest moment of my life. Like I say, magazines don't get old. Television really doesn't get old. And so then, because it was their first season, they were in their infancy, they collected a lot of designer pieces, and they wanted to work with obviously a lot of crowns, because it was about the queen. So for the first season, I had all of my pieces were used almost regularly. Almost every episode they were using my pieces, which was wild. Wow. Like, it was just wild. So for the first year, they borrowed. The second year, I didn't know if anything was going to come from it. And before filming starts, I get an email from the stylist or the costume designer, and she's like, hey, I want to purchase some from you this year. And I was like, okay. So I made a little collection for her. And then every season, she said she really wanted to support Canadian talent. So she specifically sought out Canadian designers. They used a lot of Canadian fabric shops. I introduced them to a fabric supplier I was working with, and she purchased a lot of fabric from her. So it just became like a really nice relationship. When I got the email that the show was canceled, it was crushing, because it was 4 years that I got to work on the show. So after that, I got a real bug for TV. I was like, I want to be on TV. Mm-hmm. So I sought out a group called the Artisan Group, and they are a gifting group out of California. And the girl who runs the group, she does gifting lounges for the Oscars, for the Grammys. I used to do a lot for TIFF as well, actually. I worked with George Strombolopoulos, had a gifting lounge. So that was really like my first foray into the world of celebrity. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of really cool A-listers.
Like who? Give us one. Give us one.
Canadian Law, I can't. Oh. I know, it sucks. So sad. I can tell you off the record. But yeah, so I can say George Strombolopoulos. Mm-hmm, so I worked on with him on TIFF for about 3 or 4 years, which was really cool. And I gave collections to him every year. So I really got the bug then, but that was not television. And then so I saw, like I was saying, I sought out this artisan group, and I became a member. And so what they do is they put collections together for the big events, and it's a way for it's all handmade artisans. It's mostly women, which is really cool, and we're from all over the world. And we will she gets gifting opportunities for television shows, and the stylist will send her kind of a breakdown of what they're looking for, and we will put together collections. So say they're looking for earrings in specific, like yellow gold or rose gold, and if there's something that I think in my collection would be really good for the show, I would put together like a little gift to essentially give to the stylist, and then the stylist can choose whether they want to use it that year. Nice. So I've through this group, I was featured in the television show Charmed, the reboot of Charmed. Mm-hmm. I was featured in Riverdale, which was really cool. I made cat ears for Josie and the Pussycats, and they used them on such a girl power scene. I was like, yes. The girls were all wearing them when they were beating up this dude. It was cool. Kind of a crazy scene, and I was like, yeah. That's right. So I got to do that. I've this season I've sent to the TV show Grownish, Grace and Frankie, which fingers crossed they use something, because I love Grace and Frankie.
Is that like Canadian?
No.
Yeah, they're on Netflix.
They're on Netflix. Yeah. It's my guilty pleasure. I'm going to be Frankie one of these days. Like, I'm going to be the lady living in Arizona or New Mexico with the caftans and the big quartz necklaces. That's going to be me. I live vicariously through her. So I hope that they use something from my collection for the show. I gifted again to Charmed. I sent out quite a few things. So, I mean, it's kind of whether they use it or not. But it's a really, like I said, it doesn't get old to see my stuff on television, and it's just another opportunity to get my stuff in the hands of stylists. So,
and even if they don't use it for one of the episodes or one of the seasons, you're still sending again.
Yep.
So
and
no doesn't mean no.
No doesn't mean no. Maybe it doesn't fit the character for that
fit.
season. And we've seen this happen where, you know, people will give stuff for season 1, and then all of a sudden it turns up in season 4. So these are collections that the stylist will hold on to for the duration of the show. We've seen where sometimes the stylist will leave that show, go to another show, and they'll use it for another show. So it's like, you know, it doesn't have a life expectancy. Like, it can keep going on. And so it's like you never know when you're going to see something pop up on TV, which is kind of neat. So we do have spotters that watch the shows to see if things come up, and they'll let everybody know, because unfortunately sometimes the stylists are so busy and they have so much to deal with that they generally don't let us know when it's going to happen. So one of the spotters from our group will kind of let us know if we see something on there.
And you just have to keep going.
You just have to keep
sending,
because you never know. You never know when something might pop up that is like a perfect fit. Like for the Josie and the Pussycat ones, like I'm one of the only people that do headpieces. So, and they were like, they need headbands with cat ears. I'm like, yep, that's me. And they used them, and it was amazing, and it was so cool. So,
speaking of headpieces, so you brought a little something for us to look at.
I did. I brought some of my favorites. Okay, thanks.
Madame,
yes.
Let's see what we've got here.
So I just brought a couple of pieces from the new collection, just to kind of talk about some trends.
I love these colors.
So, me too. Gold, all gold everything.
Gold everything, all gold everything. Day.
So something that is like, I can't kill it. Kind of want to.
It has a life.
It has a life.
Live forever.
It's one of those things that I just did on a fluke. And who was I talking? I was talking to a friend of mine last night, and she's a stationery designer, and she was saying she did market this weekend, and she's like, it was the stuff that she never thought people would gravitate towards, that they gravitate towards. Celestial. Like, who knew celestial was going to be a trend? Who knew people wanted to wear stars on their hair? And they do, and they want to wear stars on their back, and they want to wear stars on their shoulders, and they want to wear stars in their ears. Like, it has been my biggest trend has been celestial. So I started with these sweet little hairpins.
These are pretty.
Well, this is the comb version. And I started with these little hairpins that were literally just a star and a starburst. And I hand paint, I didn't do these ones, but I hand paint all the tips with enamel paint. And they have just kind of taken on a life of their own. Of course you can see. So this is the comb version that I came up with this year. And that actually came to fruition because I did a photo shoot last season with the girls from the Modern Bride in Guelph, and they actually paired all of the hairpins together, kind of clustered at the side of her head. And I was like, oh, I like that. I'm going to make it into a comb. So
cool.
Thanks, Jessica and the Modern Bride team. You did a really great thing.
This is beautiful.
So that's one of my celestial ones. These little guys have been kind of my update. Like, these are a little less literally stars. They're a little bit more of like a starburst, kind of like, they're a little bit more conceptual. Last year, I had a great bride that I worked with. She's in Calgary now, and she had a Sri Lankan-based wedding. Her fiance Sri Lankan, so she had to wear all of the Sri Lankan jewelry. But she wanted it a little bit more Western and a little bit more to her taste. So she came to me, and I made 18 pieces of jewelry for her to wear on her wedding day.
Wow.
And 2 of them, because she has to wear hairpins on both sides, they had to be a celestial theme. So we made this little star and moon combo. You can take a look at
You can hold them up.
Star and moon. And I kind of fell in love with them. So I named them after her. And they've been a runaway hit again this season. I've sold them to New Zealand. I've sold them to the States. I've sold them to Canada. I've sold them to Australia. I've sold them to Asia. Like, they've just been...
They're stunning.
They're really pretty.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, they're just a little something. So they're kind of that real, like, you know, you have a little bun, you pop it into the bun. It looks really cute. And these are nice things you can kind of wear every day. So, like, even after the wedding, you can wear this to, like...
Yeah. You can jazz up
an outfit.
I would love this for my little top bun.
Yeah, right? Just stick it into your top bun. So those are kind of like the little things that have been really popular. Crowns, as I've been talking about, crowns. So one thing that I find my brides come to me for pearls. I don't get a lot of the crystal bride. I get a lot of more of that vintage bride, the one who loves kind of like the pearls, a little more toned down, a little bit more rustic, a little more vintage. So this has been one of my best sellers this season is this
That is so
sweet little, it's just
Hold
kind
this
of
to
like
the camera so they can see. Like Vanna. There you go.
So it's just kind of like a little tiara.
And that's for, what do you suggest? Hair down?
I like this for hair down personally, just because it has a little bit of height to it, so it does give you a little bit of that height. If you wear your hair up, I find it gets a little lost.
Gotcha.
So I really love this one for hair down.
And you do all this by hand.
I do. So that's my brass version.
Wowzers.
I have it in gold, silver, rose gold, and brass as well.
I'm putting it on.
Put it on.
Does it look nice
It's
in my red hair?
backwards.
Grin. Does it look nice in my red
It
hair?
actually, that color looks, oh my God, it's so cute on you. Ding. So sweet.
Oh, wait.
So this was my vanity project this year.
Oh, wow.
So this is a coronet. So this is a very vintage inspired style. It's all brass sleeves. I just finished one for a bride who's getting, actually I don't think she's a bride. I think she said she was going to a black tie event in Thailand. So she's going to be wearing this in Thailand, and she got it in bright gold. So it's like a really shiny gold. But this is kind of this is my baby.
Wow.
So it's kind of worn as a headband. So it's got the back piece, and then it's got the crown
amazing.
on top. I know, I love this one. And again, with the pearls, because my brides seem to really gravitate towards the pearls. And
How long does a piece like this take you?
That was the one I worked on the other day. It took about 7 hours.
Ooh,
Yeah.
It's
It's weighty.
Which is
It's
good.
definitely got,
because you don't want anything
heavy
that's
is
gonna be,
quality.
It is.
It is.
You don't want anything that's flipping around.
You look so good in the brass.
Are you feeling it?
Yeah,
on
I'm
me?
feeling it on you. I'm feeling the brass on you. I think it's a really nice tone in your hair.
Ginger brass.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Yes.
Just
It
keep
feels
it on.
wonderful.
It's comfortable,
It's very
It's
comfortable.
very comfortable.
And it feels like secure.
It's secure.
Not
It's
that it's
comfortable.
gonna fall.
I suffer from migraines, so for me to wear headbands is not a fun thing. So I really sourced my headbands to make sure I found ones that didn't cause a headache.
Interesting.
So these ones actually have like a flare out at the bottom, so
Yep.
it doesn't press up against the back of your head. So those, my customers have come back to me saying that they're really comfortable and they barely feel like they're wearing them,
Love it.
even if there's a lot of weight to it. So I do silver as well. Everything seems to be gold. Oh, I have this little silver there. So this is one of my favorites from this collection. So I work with this flower designer. She's in the Ukraine. Like I said, I have suppliers all over the world, and she hand makes these beautiful flowers for me, and then I assemble everything together. So this is kind of a hair comb version.
How did you find her? Just your
did I
community?
find her? Yeah, I can't even remember how I found her, but she does such beautiful work, and she's actually custom making some. To give you a little bit of an insight on the 2020 collection, my theme is going to be Canada.
Oh.
I think it was after the Raptors won I'm a huge Raptors fan. I call my dog a raptor. I love dinosaurs.
His name is Raptor?
No, her name's Chanel, but she stands up on her hind legs and walks around like a little raptor, and she's got these super long legs, so she kind of looks like a little raptor as she's walking. So when we say raptor, she stands up and starts walking.
That's amazing.
So I really love dinosaurs. I have a lot of dinosaurs in my house along with cactuses. And where was I going with this? Oh yeah, so my theme is Canada, because when I saw the Raptors win the championship, I saw how it brought the country together. And it really inspired me about how wonderful our country is, and how diverse our country is, and how beautiful our country is. And we have so many beautiful elements to this country that I don't think people appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a trip out east last fall with my brother and sister-in-law before they had their twins, and it really opened up my eyes, because I hadn't been any further than Winnipeg, and it's Winnipeg in the winter, so we didn't really see much. So to go out to the East Coast and actually see the coast and see the beauty that this country has, it really inspired me. So a lot of this collection is going to be inspired by Canada.
I love that.
So my girl who's doing my flowers for me, she's actually custom made some trilliums. So there's going to be some trilliums in my collection,
Lovely.
which is a very unique modern flower. The collection is going to be very modern, very clean, but I'm bringing some of those Canadian aspects into it. So that's kind of exciting. So I did bring something that I just kind of whipped together really quickly the other day, the first piece of the collection. So it is a pearl comb.
Beautiful.
And I'm really working a lot with pearls. Like I said, my customers love pearls.
Mm-hmm.
This year has been more than usual. I've seen more brides coming to me for pearls, all pearls, everything. So I decided to do pretty much a whole collection based on pearls.
Wow.
So it's a lot of pearls.
Yep.
Real faux with the Swarovski, with the Precocia or pressed. We'll see. I can't even say that word right. And freshwater pearls as well. So I'm really excited. So this is like a little sneak peek. That's all you get.
When I say sneak, I mean it.
I seriously mean sneak. But yeah, just having some fun with it.
Girl, you are talented.
Oh, pish posh. Thank
Goodness,
you.
look at this though.
Thank you.
These are insane. So when do you usually launch your collections?
So actually, that's what I'm going to be talking to my photographer tonight about when we're going to be shooting. We usually shoot. So I usually should start designing by now, but it's been such a busy season that I haven't actually, like, literally that came to me in a dream and I whipped it up yesterday morning because I was like, I got to make this. But I usually start designing August, September, October. We usually shoot in November. Last year we shot in December, and then we launch in February.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So every February I launch a collection, usually around the beginning to the middle. This year was a little late because my brother had twins, so we launched at the end of the month. But
so last question.
Yes.
Before you head out.
Okay.
So what is a piece of... No, that's not even the question that I want to ask you. Not a piece of advice. We did that. Can you leave a question for our audience? Something that you are curious about, whether it's in your world, in wedding world, in events, in e-commerce. What are you interested to know?
There's lots that I'm interested to know. Can I ask a couple?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do two.
Let's do two. So my question is to cake designers. How do you transport those cakes and keep your wits about you? Honestly, I see some of these cakes that show up to these weddings and my heart is in palpitations seeing how big they are. And like, I've talked to my friends who are cake artists and I swear it's magic. I swear you guys just like have like a teleporter, because I would be a nervous wreck. Like I was talking to you before about this veil being shipped off to Washington. I am a nervous wreck until I know it's in her hands. Yep. And to be a cake designer, to be working with something that, you know, you're working with like the laws of gravity. You're working with speed bumps. You're working with divots in the road. You're working with heat. You're working with cold. Like you're working with so many elements. Yep. So cake designers, how do you do it if it's not magic? That is something I really want to know.
What is the system to make
What is the system?
An easy transportation
Because
route?
It just...
Yeah.
It blows my mind.
That's a good question.
Because I will get cupcakes from my friend Crumbenberry and I will put them on my seat, and by the time I get home they will be on themselves.
Yeah, they will have slid.
I will be, and it's
or
just
melted.
like, and I'm driving as slow as I can down those country roads and I'm taking every back road and somehow they will still be over on themselves. So how do you do it?
Okay, that's a good question.
So that's the question for the industry people.
I like that.
For the brides, what do you guys want to see in trends? What is there something out there that you cannot find anywhere? Is there a veil that you've been searching for? Is there a design style that you've been searching for? Is there something that you haven't seen? Because I do get a lot of brides that come to me and say, I have been looking everywhere for this and I finally found it from you. I've been looking, and they're usually like a week away from their wedding. Right. Or I've been looking everywhere and I'm in New Zealand and you're in Canada and I found you in Canada. And it's just like, what is out there that doesn't exist? Like, is there something that you guys are looking for that we can help fill that need? Like, is there, like, I know I was one of the first ones to start the shoulder necklace and then that kind of became a trend. So it's like, is there something out there that you guys want to see and you just cannot find it? Please let me know, because I'm always looking for a challenge. I'm always looking for something new to create. So if there's something that you have not been able to find, please let me know if there's something that you're missing in life in the bridal accessory world.
Awesome.
I want to be your fairy godmother.
All right, you heard it, folks. Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. Let me know.
Well, thanks for coming in, Blair.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure.
And we already decided that you're coming back. So
Yay.
we will have you in for season 2.
Okay, sounds great. This is amazing, Corinne. Thank you so much.
Let's cheers it out, my dear.
Cheers it out.